after the rain that washed away free practice 3 yesterday, Formula 1 was able to get a qualifying session in to determine the grid for the 2020 Styrian Grand Prix. Hello everybody and welcome back. Race 2 of the season is moments away. Let's take a look at the Drivers' and the Constructors' Championship. It's the second round of the season and the first of 3 currently confirmed double-header events. Welcome back to the Red Bull Ring here in Austria for the Styrian Grand Prix. Next weekend, we're off again, this time over to Hungary before a week off, and then 3 races in a row again, the British Grand Prix and the 70th anniversary Grand Prix at Silverstone, and then the Spanish Grand Prix in Barcelona in mid-August. A week break follows before it's another triple header, the Belgian Grand Prix and Italian Grand Prix, followed by brand new events confirmed. Now this weekend, it's the Tuscany Grand Prix at Mugello on the September the 13th, then a week's break before we head off to Russia for the Russian Grand Prix at Sochi. In the Drivers' Championship, Valtteri Bottas leads the way on 25 points after taking victory last weekend. Charles Leclerc is second, Lando Norris third, Lewis Hamilton is fourth, Carlos Sainz in fifth, Sergio Perez sixth, seventh for Pierre Gasly, Esteban Ocon eighth, Giovinazzi's ninth, and Vettel rounds out the top 10. In the Constructors' Championship, Mercedes lead the way, 37 points. They are 11 clear of McLaren in second. Ferrari are third on 19. Racing Point, AlphaTauri, Renault and Alfa Romeo all have points on the board. Yet to score points are both the Williams, Haas and, surprisingly, Red Bull. It's the 2020 Styrian Grand Prix and this is your Sunday race preview. Well, yesterday was full of action. It was a lot of filling when free practice 3 got cancelled, a 46 minutes delay to qualifying 3, but my goodness, was it worth the wait. But before we get into the qualifying report, let's take a look around the Red Bull Ring with Lap Attack. Let's take a look at the Red Bull Ring in Austria, 4.318 kilometres, 10 corners, 3 DRS zones and 2 detection points and a speed trap on the way down towards turn 4. 10 corners, elevation changes high at turn 3. On board then with the Red Bull of 2019, as you come into the back half of the section, this is where you start your lap, a small downhill section, full opposite lock, blast up the hill, open up the DRS and hurtle uphill towards turn 1, starting the lap, 8th gear flat out. Usually you're at full pace as you brake down 4th gear, flip the car to the right, uphill counter the oversteer. Now there's a long drag and a little kink is officially called turn 2 before you head up the hill towards turn 3 of Rima's 8th gear, brake down all the way down to 2nd gear, tight right, full opposite lock, counter the oversteer and you back down the hill. DRS open towards Sochler's Gold at turn 4. It's a downhill braking zone so you've got gravity on your side. As you hit the brakes down to 4th gear, carry the car in on the half banked section, get the power on early in the exit and drift round turn 5. 6 and 7 is next as you pass the famous Bull that's alongside the other half of the track. No fans in attendance, but you're blasting through this section that is always a treat to see. It almost feels like a go-kart track as you're up 7th gear, up over the crest towards Lauda and Rindt at turns 9 and 10. Brake slightly, 5th gear, carry the car towards the exit, little dip into turn 10, get the power on, ride the curb, open up the DRS, so you complete a lap at the Red Bull Ring. A tricky but demanding circuit, and one that certainly tests the drivers. Right, without further ado, let's get on to the qualifying report from the comfort of the commentary box. Was it one of the more eventful qualifyings I've ever commentated on in my life? Answer, yes, it was. What an absolutely brilliant qualifying. It took us a while to get into it though. Rainstorms in the morning that called off the Formula 3 race and the third practice session delayed the start of qualifying by 46 minutes. So we were just stood there twiddling our thumbs, trying to think of things to say. But when the action got going, it was George Russell who absolutely starred in these wet conditions in that Williams. He was originally top of the timing board as well. He had such a unique understanding of this circuit in the wet. It was unbelievable. So Russell was fast as well. Much of the morning was unclear if we would actually go green at any point as well. Vettel was first out off the pit lane in both Q1 and Q2. He stood there for around about a minute and a half before the session went green as well. Grosjean skated off the track down at turn 4 on the first official run for Sebastian Vettel. That then brought out the yellow flags, but it also meant that Romain Grosjean was in trouble and had to return to the garage and was unable to set any lap times in the session. Unfortunately, so he starts 20th on the grid, but 19th due to penalties we'll get into later. Conditions improved. Hamilton set the pace as well. Sergio Perez, he was P1 in free practice 1 and was P4 in practice 3, looked to have a good car with him this weekend. He was out in the first session. Unbelievable upset for Racing Point. Raikkonen missed the cut as well did Antonio Giovinazzi. But Giovinazzi had one of the most unusual spins in the wet. We've seen it in MotoGP, first time we've seen it in Formula 1. Coming out of turn 9, the ring curve, he just got on the curbs too much. The car spat him to the left-hand side into the wall, spun around and bang, the rear wing was damaged. He was able to keep going, but eventually parked it on the runoff road to turn 4 at Sochler's Gold. It's downhill approach, and of course in the wet, braking would be a nightmare, so they red flagged the session with 11 seconds to go, cancelling everybody's faster times, which meant, as I said, it kicked out Giovinazzi as well. You can see on the timing monitor here exactly who it kicked out. It meant that for the first time in qualifying 2, George Russell got through. On to qualifying 2 then, and it was a disaster for Ferrari once again. Vettel 10th and Charles Leclerc eliminated. He starts the grid in 11th as well, but now has a 3-place grid penalty for impeding Kimi Raikkonen on one of his runs in qualifying 1 that prevented him getting out, as well as Danny Kvyat impeded. So, disaster for Ferrari, and it just goes from worse to worse. The rain did ease, though, in qualifying 2, and we saw a little bit of a battle as well. Hamilton and Verstappen impressing left and right. 10th of a second at the end of the front of the field. It was smooth enough for Ferrari as well in the first runs, but as the times got quicker and quicker, they were quickly back in the field, and it forced Leclerc out. The Monaco driver finished second in Austria last week, starts 14th on the grid, so don't look for impressing here. Lance Stroll couldn't replicate the pace as well. He ended up in 13th, had a Danny Kvyat and Kevin Magnussen as well as the cars pulled in for the session. It was treacherous, and qualifying 3 would get even worse. So the rain came down in the third part of qualifying once again, absolutely deluged the track. We're back to what it was like at the beginning of Q1, which was 50 minutes ago. But the rain intensifies, but my goodness me, was it a good run from Lewis Hamilton. The first lap, he was 7 tenths quicker than Verstappen. And then Verstappen, on his last lap, to take the checkered flag, got distracted a little bit by a car coming into the pit lane, got on the edge turf, locked the car and sort of skid and slid all the way down to the turn 10 corner, and of course lost the time. So Lewis Hamilton then put in an absolute stonker of a lap time, and in the 5th time in history this has happened. Lewis Hamilton outqualifies the entire field for pole position number 89 by 1.2 seconds. What an amazing lap. I said it in the commentary, Lewis Hamilton with one of the greatest qualifying laps I have ever seen in my life. It was sheer brilliance. And after a miserable last week, Hamilton's come back and put it on pole position this week as well. Going forward, the main focus, of course, was Hamilton Verstappen as well. Bottas was slightly further down the order, but Carlos Sainz starts 3rd on the grid. Brilliant for him as well. And Esteban Ocon up there as well after some early runs. Right, that's it from Q3, and let's head back over to the main studio setup. Now, unfortunately, we don't have enough time to show you the usual Sting graphic for the grid, as it has changed quite dramatically in the last few moments. So we've brought it up on a drop-down menu alongside, and I'll read it out to you. Row 1 sees Lewis Hamilton on pole position. He took it by 1.2 seconds in the end to Max Verstappen, who starts 2nd on the grid for the 3rd race running at this venue. Of course, he was on 2nd last weekend and 2nd last season at the Red Bull Ring. He's won here twice before. Can he put last weekend's misery to bed? Row 2 sees Carlos Sainz starting 3rd place and Valtteri Bottas in 4th, the championship leader. He's he's going to have to do something mighty good today to keep Lewis Hamilton behind in the championship. Row 3 sees Esteban Ocon alongside Alexander Albon. Row 4, Pierre Gasly and Danny Ricciardo once again in the top 10. And row 5, Lando Norris, a 3-place grid penalty for overtaking in free practice 1 under the yellow flags and eventually a red flag. So keeping in line with the Lewis Hamilton penalty from last week, Lando starts 9th. Sebastian Vettel rounds out row 5 and the top 10 starting in 10th place. Then on row 6, his best ever qualifying in Formula 1. Through to Q2 for the first time, now tops the Q2 session. A fantastic job from George Russell and Williams. Our points on the board today. Keep your fingers crossed. He starts alongside Lance Stroll in 12th. Racing Point were dominant here on Friday. Nothing at the moment. Then on row 7, we get Danny Kvyat alongside Charles Leclerc as a 3-place grid penalty for impeding Danny Kvyat and Kimi Raikkonen in the first part of qualifying, so he has to take a 3-place grid penalty. He did qualify 11th, now starts 14th. Row 8 of the grid sees Kevin Magnussen 15th and Kimi Raikkonen start in 16th. Row 9 sees Sergio Perez 17th and Nicholas Latifi in 18th, and the 10th row of the grid sees Romain Grosjean start 19th after not taking part in qualifying. Antonio Giovinazzi has a 5-place grid penalty but only drops 1 due to qualifying 19th, so he starts 20th on the grid with that penalty. So as that disappears, I'll now take a step to the middle of the monitor. But what a weekend we've got coming up then as well, not just here and next weekend, because the MotoGP Championship returns to Jerez next weekend. You can catch all of the action here on YouTube in a special roundup show on the Monday as well, delivering just a usual report like we've done for Formula 1. We'll be doing that all in one show for MotoGP, and the same for the British Touring Cars when they start up again. But next weekend we've also got the Hungarian Grand Prix for Formula 1, but of course the Grand Review podcast with qualifying and race commentary highlights will be on Wednesday, and of course join us later on today for the race review show, where Dad will rejoin me as well to discuss today's events, and he's in the commentary box now waiting as well. So, predictions. Well, last week it was a one-stop strategy, but the safety car split it into a 2. There's a 40% chance of a safety car here, so there's a high chance that we could see a different strategy emerge. They've got plenty of new tyres left. Because yesterday's qualifying was rained out, it stopped the having to use the tyres used in Q2. So every driver in the field has a free choice of tyres, a brand new spec as well to go forward in the race. So that's going to create a whole new strategy. We were worried coming into this weekend that it'll just be a repeat of what we saw last weekend. Would it really be a problem? And we've got some other things being set up this weekend as well. Everything looks to be pointing to a very different Grand Prix, and a very exciting one as well for the Styrian round. The second race at the Red Bull Ring in Austria, but it's officially the Styrian Grand Prix. Stay safe, take care. Join us later on for the Sunday race review. I'm predicting it could be Hamilton, Verstappen, and let's throw onto the podium Carlos Sainz for McLaren. Seems to be going quick, so maybe the top 3 will stay the same. Bottas might get up there as well, who knows. But let's see if George Russell can get some points as well. I've got a feeling the midfield battle will be good, but watch Hamilton and Verstappen from row 1 at the start. Verstappen has the inside line into turn 1, and if he gets a good start, he could be troubling Hamilton. Join us later though to find out what all happened in the race. It's live on Sky Sports F1 and BBC Radio 5 live on the website, and Channel 4 have highlights later on as well at 6:30. But join us later on this evening for the race review. From us all here though, bye for now.